Lovely people, welcome back to the Liminal Minds podcast, a podcast that holds space for the stories and experiences of people living with a mental health illness, the neurodivergent, exploring their day-to-days, the messy in-between, and also highlighting the courage and strength that it takes to navigate their day-to-day. The point of all this is to inform, promote empathy and fight stigma. Before we get to today's conversations, where we're going to, talk about what happens when a child discovers at an early age that this world is not safe, what that looks like in adult life, and how we can help them, help ourselves, overcome that. Please like, share, and subscribe. Leave your comments and your thoughts about this episode or any episode that I've recorded. Share you with your friends. Wacha watu wajue ni nini unaonanga huku. And we'd really appreciate that. And welcoming today's guest. Many of you will know him as Rixpoet. I have other names, but I've been instructed not to share them. Rix, karibu sana.
Asante Ngunu.
Yes, so I know you as a writer, a poet, a mental health advocate. But please tell people, for people who don't know you, what exactly you do, everything that you do.
Well, there are many things, but just an extension is I also double up as a sexual and reproductive health and rights activist.
Yeah.
I basically use storytelling on the intersections of mental health, masculinities, and reproductive health, especially in bringing in men to be more open about their inner worlds and inner lives, being that many of us have not had the language to talk about what's happening inside us or within us because of these so-called gender constraints that are associated with masculinities. So yeah, I love talking about these issues, and I'm also quite vocal about reproductive health. That is the whole range from sex, pleasure, sexual abuse and violence, family planning, contraceptives, all that stuff, and men's involvement in them as well.
I actually understood it. Like I should have mentioned podcast as well.
Yes.
Yes, nothing underneath. Yeah.
Yes.
How has your journey been with that specifically before we get to this topic? I was like, I didn't even know you talk about things like contraceptives as well.
Yeah. Well, so the year 2023, I was hanging out with, I don't know how open we are on this podcast.
Oh, yes, no. You can give people the PG version. That is a conversation that we said we are going to have.
Yeah.
But like as of this moment,
Okay.
you still, yes. So, I have nephews and nieces who watch this. So let's.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So I was hanging out with this lady friend of mine, and I told her that I'm thinking of doing an event where people are coming to be open about their sensual lives.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was pretty afraid that maybe this thing is gonna fail. Maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe nobody will come or anything like that. Then she was just like, she apparently doubled up as an event organizer, and she was like, just choose a date and then I'll help you organize it.
Yeah.
And then that went really well. So after the event, which was actually called Nothing Underneath, now I was like, I think I need to do a podcast a month after the event. And it really shot up really quickly.
Yeah.
The realization to me was that on the surface, on paper, we are a very conservative culture and society.
Yes.
But qua ground, people are
in the bedrooms, in the homes,
mad.
Yes.
In these marriages, these office workplaces, people are moving really mad.
We are wilding out.
Like hata kwa kanisa, like and so for me, I think my space as an activist, as an artist, is to go to the places where people are often afraid to go to. And one of my most favorite people, James Baldwin, said something akin to like, if I love you, I have to show you things you don't know, show you your blind spots. So for me, I think, especially in the part of languaging, but also courage to talk about stuff that perhaps we have experience for, but don't have courage to say or a language to say. So those two things are very big for me. Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking forward to that conversation.
Sure.
But for today, we are on a different matter, a matter that's still very important. And I think maybe people will get to know you more from maybe the discussion that we have and why I had you today for this specific conversation. So we are going to talk about childhood trauma. And just as starting off, because I think when people hear childhood trauma, they pivot completely to abuse, and they have this image, this very specific image of what abuse is. But could you maybe explain to us what childhood trauma actually really is, what it really encompasses?
Yeah, maybe the word encompass is better because it's a wide range of experiences. And I would say perhaps at the baseline, these are the overwhelming occurrences that could have affected somebody at a particular time of their childhood that was beyond their emotional wavelength to handle, right? And this could be from being beaten by a dog,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
to watching your parents fighting,
Yeah.
to even associating places with particular experiences. Say, if you grew up in a place where there was a lot of insecurity, maybe people are being killed a lot. It may not have happened to somebody you know, but then you have a trauma around that experience and you are a child. There is that. But then because these experiences were overwhelming for your capacity as a child, they definitely do qualify to be traumatic experiences. So there's it's really a wide range. Like you say, we often just narrow it down to abuse, but then it's so much more. For example, even if you've grown up somewhere where there are earthquakes, you know, there will be trauma
Natural
associated
disasters,
with that. Natural disasters, you know, that are traumatizing. And if they find you as a kid, that could be associated with childhood trauma. But of course, in our world, we also speak a bit more on the advanced childhood experiences, which now are mostly associated with relationships. Right?
Really?
Yeah. Like relationships of the child and the people around the child. So yes, so relationships in that way. That you know, you grew up in environments that are not favorable for child nurturing. And that's also a wide range of things happening. So yeah, I mean, there's no one specific definition, but there's a lot encompassing the same.
I think for most people don't realize that, and I should have to admit my understanding of it was a bit limited until I also got into what you refer to as ACEs, the advanced childhood experiences. Just that I didn't want to use that word because it would complicate matters. But neglect also goes into this, bit emotional, bit, because that's the other thing. Like, there's a physical bit and there's an emotional. And also, I think it's important for our viewers to understand that trauma does not only affect people's emotions or or quote unquote their psychology. It manifests physically, because it affects our nervous systems. And research has actually shown that brain development is affected by by traumatic experiences that happen in our childhood. But so for you, maybe to help the viewers understand what got you, just a brief summary, because I think we can what got you into this work? Why was it important for you to get into
So I was a very curious boy ever since I remember myself. I'm a firstborn of 3 wonderful kids in our home. My parents are also firstborns from their homes. Grew up very different. Like, my parents grew up in very different social cultural settings. My mom they were like a monogamous home. My dad came from a polygamous home. My dad, there were like 30 kids in their village. My mom, there were 8. On my dad's side, my mom's side, their parents were a bit more emotionally present.
Yeah.
From my dad's side, it was chaos,
Yeah.
like a living nightmare, because my dad was born when her mom was 16.
Oh,
That was a teenager.
Yeah.
And my dad's mom is the third wife. She's the last wife. There's a lot of politics about that in polygamous homes.
Yeah.
So there was typically a lot of violence and chaos also that came from my grandfather. A bit of context, grandpa was a soldier in the Second World War. He fought for the British in Burma, which is now called Myanmar. And what they didn't figure out was the PTSD he returned home with that made him depend on alcohol. And he was really also quite paranoid as a person and vehemently violent.
Yeah.
My mom tells me, because she was married really young, she tells me stories of like when grandpa would like come back to the village, he would beat up everything in his wake, a chicken, a cow, a child, anything he would see. So there was a lot of anxiety in that kind of space and fear and all that, and yet they all was really still trying to maintain relationships with their parents. It's also the space where it was a very patriarchal environment, like the man of the village is like this patriarch, and he calls all the shots. He is the law, which is the context with which my dad grew up in. So I remember a story my mom also told me, like grandpa would like collect his male kids in his house, because now in the village, in a Luo setup, if you're a polygamous, you can decide whether to put your wives in different villages or you converge them in one space. If they're in one space, you also have your own house. You're not living in a particular woman's house. You have your own house. So grandpa had his own house in the middle of the boma. So he would converge his sons in his house and give them supu ya nyama and leave the girls to just eat mboga with their mothers. And in our post-colonial African context, nyama is associated with wealth, high class, and betterment. And mboga, which is actually some like a really good vegetable, is associated with poverty. And that's those kinds of acts start being the early teachings, of this gender class thing in the home, that my dad starts looking at women as,
Yeah, and it is definitely internalized. At that particular age, you have to...
100%. And you're a teenager, so these are the things. And so this chaos is just what he transferred home. And this is also, I mean, not to say that my mother was also like a perfect person. I mean, everybody has their moments, really. But from what I gather is the abuse that happened in my home severely traumatized my mother to the point that she felt codependent to dad, to date, actually. Like, I don't think she sees herself outside that marriage,
that relationship,
as an identity. But of course, that's also connected to other patriarchal ideologies about marriage and what women were at the time, those years, and everything else. So watching them fight, beat each other up, huddle each other up in the home, holding knives, and there's a lot of blood. And myself, I'm also just being beaten to a pulp sometimes, burnt, thrown onto walls. My head is being stormed. You're being abused emotionally, verbally. All that stuff really broke me as a kid. And the other context is we also, I think, were experiencing grief that was unprocessed in that home because we lost 2 kids. There was a miscarriage, actually 2 miscarriages, and we lost 2 other. Actually, yeah, we lost 2 babies. There was one kid who died before me, and then me, and then my immediate sister died at 5 months, and then my brother came, and then my sister, and then another miscarriage during post-election violence. So there's a lot of unprocessed grief in there, pressure about money and, getting out of poverty. Like there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is not a life I want to live,
Yeah.
and I used to be curious, like, because my uncles from my dad's side, my paternal uncles also, like, there are so many stories of them being violent as well and alcohol dependent.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, is this the kind of man I'm supposed to grow to become? Is this what men are?
Yeah. And this realization, just to cut a bit, at what age was this? As you continue, maybe
teenage years.
Okay.
Teenage years, because now that's the time I think my anger was really building up. Because I was running away from home. I had run away from, in fact, for me, I usually say, I'm really a miracle baby,
Yeah.
because there's so many people who were hearing the stories back then and they're like, this guy is not going to survive.
Yeah.
So I'd run away from home. I'd sleep in Nairobi streets, hanging out with sex workers on Koinange Street and just seeing the chaos happening in this city at night.
Yeah.
I was suicidal. I'd run away to go kill myself as far away as Mombasa. But in between all, what I was really trying to communicate is that I need help. I can't live in this space with this kind of environment. Like, it's not sustainable for me.
Yeah.
But then it was being brushed off as teenage stubbornness and everything. They took me for prayers because, there was that insinuation, umerogwa, there's somebody doing things that... So when I was growing up and asking myself questions like, there has to be a bigger life than what I'm experiencing at home.
Yeah.
So I kept probing and I kept probing and probing. And at some point, so now when I was going through my second bout with depression at 28 and I publicly came out, that's the time there was like a turnover of things, because now I got information for my first time that, there is something called mental health, there is something called depression, there is something called post-traumatic stress, because I went to therapy for the first time. And that's because I came out publicly with my story that I'm actually suicidal, I'm depressed, and this is what's happening to me. I had previously been writing about domestic violence because that's what I grew up with, but I didn't know its connection to, say, mental health issues or even politics. I didn't know how they're all interconnected.
Yes.
And colonialism by the stretch. I didn't know how they were interconnected. So in 2017, when I came out, that's the first time I began the advocacy properly. Like, okay, so mental health is actually connected to my upbringing, and they're connected to the gender education that I have. Because for me, I would say, like, I'm really, really lucky as a man specifically that I got a lot of support from the people around me at that time. But many more men end up actually completing their suicide because there's really nobody to talk to. They don't have a social media following like I do. They don't have male friends like I do. And sometimes even lady friends, they can't speak to their parents about these very difficult things. They don't even have a language for.
That's the other thing. And I usually keep insisting, because just to pivot a bit, because like I usually see this discussion of people are misusing this mental health terms, this therapy speak. I'm like, nah. This is language. Language is supposed to be used. Are people maybe misappropriating in the wrong circumstances? But the pros, for me, the pros outweigh the cons. But
and that situation also is a symptom of something else. Because what is somebody trying to achieve weaponizing this language? What's going on underneath that? For me, that's the question I'm always asking. Because yes, misappropriation happens, And maybe we could say it's continuing to happen a lot more because the language is spreading, which of course has its pros and cons.
Yeah.
But then we have to constantly be interrogating this weaponization. What is somebody trying to achieve? And what is it that they're hiding from, you know? And of course, if you're the victim of this misappropriation, then you may not be at a place to ask these questions because you'll be angry and you'll be mad, you know?
Yeah. Yes, because
yes.
you can't like, instead of looking at the weaponizing,
Yes,
ask those questions.
You're angry at the actions. Like, okay, why is this person using these words to gaslight me, for example?
Exactly. You know, you don't actually, am I gaslighting them? To then start interrogating that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so like one of the things that maybe, and you've covered it a bit, was because like you've done work and studied around adverse childhood experiences. Did learning that help you? Like you said, like you came to this realization. Was it like studying but this was afterwards. Like was learning about this something that helped you like kind of understand, you know, like the science? So like, were you reading the science and then seeing how that applied to your life?
So the year is 2019. At the time, so this is 2 years after I've, you know, come out with my story and everything. So I started, so in my mental health advocacy, I would just use storytelling to just share what I know, with what I was going through therapy and the information that was coming to me. I still didn't know the science. So in 2019, somebody saw a tweet of mine on Twitter, and she happened to be running an organization that was actually facilitating trauma workshops for communities and for police, Kenya Police. Yes. And she reached out because I was sort of like still like a standing out figure in the respect of talking about these issues.
You still are, by the way.
Well,
yes. Let's have it right here.
Yeah, and she reached out and she was like, you know, it would be nice to meet you up and talk to you. This is the kind of work we are doing. Because I at the time I was still looking for answers. I was looking for answers. We don't have access to these texts, or say resources, you know, that teach us about the science and everything. We don't have that. And if you're not an academic, even worse, right? So at the time, I was just about to go for a mental health fellowship, actually, leadership fellowship in Canada. And, you know, when I was there, I was visiting these mental health clinics and just seeing like how those people were just a world apart from us, but the struggles were still there. They had even got to a place where they were like advertising mental health conversations like on these digital billboards in town, which was so progressive for me, you know. But then even speaking with people in Canada, they were still telling me, there's still a lot of stigma regardless, right? So I came back and then I met this lady. Her name was Angie Yoda Maina, and she was operating Green Strings Network. And I joined them because, again, I was good at storytelling, so I did some social media work for them, but then they also trained me as a facilitator for the workshops. And that was the beginning of something else for me as well, because now I was getting the scientific information of what's really going on in somebody's brain when they're being traumatized. And I just remember I would sit down, Ngunu, and I would hog all TED Talks that were talking about neuroscience and childhood traumas and essays. I would sit and watch 15 minutes, 20 minutes, taking one after another, writing, because I wanted to understand me first, you know, like, oh, so this is what's going on. Oh, so this, grandpa, you know. And now all the information started making sense. But then I figured, okay, so I have this information. I'm not an academic, you know. I'm not like a typical researcher who's gone through the whole thing in school and whatever. But I have the skills. I do have the skills. So I would think, how would I make an everyday person understand information about the prefrontal cortex, for example, or the amygdala? or the reptilian brain. Like how would I make them understand? It's in a story. You put it in a story. Like, when this was happening and this happened, this is how my brain processed it. And this part of the brain is what happens when, say, you are responding to a particular kind of trauma. And this is how it affected me. And it's been so impactful. Like, because when people start putting 1 and 2 together, and you're not relaying that information to them like in some PowerPoint presentation. It's in a form in which they can see themselves in, like in story form, very basic, normal, accessible languaging. Then you have something there. So part of the work I've also been very passionate about is because research work is incredibly paramount in these conversations.
And like especially research work in our context.
In our context, very particular context, which is very different from very many other parts of the world. Incredibly underfunded and underrepresented.
And also feels inaccessible.
Also is inaccessible. Hata sio feels is inaccessible, So I've been very privileged enough to have access to like research organizations and spaces and working with researchers who are in the space of mental health and child and trauma just generally in the Kenyan context. And part of the work I feel I am bridging is, when the research has been done, many times the results are put in some journal somewhere where only researchers can access, or it's behind a paywall that you and me can't even afford. And the very, very important good work and information and data is just hidden there. See? So part of the role I feel and I'm still playing is bridging the gap between the research work and the information trickling down to the everyday person. And how they can see, how this everyday person can see that they actually need to be part of the lobbying process, part of the research process. And even currently, I'm working with the Africa Population and Health Research Center for like as a lived experience expert. So we are training researchers on how to engage people with lived experience meaningfully in research work, because historically or traditionally that hasn't been the case. So nothing for us against us, basically. So, I see just how important it is for the science to get to the people. Very, very, 100%, very, very important.
Because another thing that maybe, and I'm sure the researchers have experienced this, there's a lot of fear and like someone comes and tell you, we are researchers, we are scientists, we want to ask these questions. Rightfully, like sometimes I also like have to make sure that people we acknowledge that it is past harm that makes people a bit jittery when it comes to this. But like I think that this is important work. I also like me, I'm also pro science. It shouldn't be like that, because like science ideally should be for us, but I usually try and because as you said, the reason why I was able, like even getting to a point like this, the reason why I was able to like kind of figure out what was happening with me was because there are people who participated in research. They answered questionnaires, as simple as things as simple as that. Maybe moving on to a bit, so like people have this general idea of what childhood trauma is, but how did it, maybe for you, how did this arrive in adulthood? And maybe you can tell us maybe in terms of you personally, the relationship with self, because that's the other thing that maybe we don't highlight as much. Then maybe you can talk to us about how it arrived in your world.
Relationship with self. This has been really a long journey. It still is. I mean, but I'm grateful for information and the capacity to process this information that, first of all the mannerisms that got manifested from me responding to trauma were not my fault. because I was really beaten up as a child, my self-esteem was in the pits.
Yeah.
I used to walk facing down a lot. You may not have experienced that, but that happened from young adulthood or like late teens, coming up to say 24, 25 years old. I used to just walk facing down because you're told you're not any important, you won't amount to anything, you're not good enough. And when that is repeated by people who are supposed to protect you, you start believing it. You do start believing it, and then you start embodying it. See, so I was, I knew like I'm a gifted guy. I'm a gifted kid. I'm brilliant. I'm an intelligent guy. But then those words, sometimes I still fight them in my nightmares, man. You know. You want to do something, but the self-doubt is out of this world, man, because your father said something when you are 17 years old that's still...
It's still there. It never goes away.
Stubborn. You see, and then on the larger context, it's also maybe, coming from the social class I was coming from. Like, I grew up lower middle class, and there are those very psychological limitations that a classist society also gives you.
You are hyper aware of them.
Extremely.
Like, maybe it's not mentioned, but but it's your reality. It's
right
always
there,
it's always there.
because so there are places you go and I don't fit in here. I don't deserve to be here. This is for other people. I'm not good enough for this.
You always feel like an unwelcome guest.
You're always unwelcome. See, and that has been really crazy to work with and deal within myself, because it took me. I remember there was a time I dated somebody who, I mean, she was coming from like a filthy rich home. Filthy rich. Ngunu ini si ati wadosi.
Any wealth.
Any wealth. So this lady would say, Rix, let's get into the car. Let's go and look at these big houses. Just to check, what our future would look like, what these homes look like, feel like. We don't have the money, but let's just go and check,
Yeah.
And these were homes that were like 23 million shillings, 24, 25, 30. And I'm like, what the heck?
Because in whatever world you imagine yourself, this is not
utopian.
Yeah.
In fact, just on TV. Let me just keep watching these things on movies, But she's like, let's go and check. And let me tell you, I didn't know the effect that would have on me. In fact, I mean, that relationship didn't end so well. But when I reflect back on the good things that happened there, I usually say this identity and finances part was such a huge thing, because when you see, then you can imagine, and then you're like, oh, it's just people who come here too. People like me. I mean, they're not any special. I mean, they may have privileges I didn't have as a child to be able to afford this, but many others also came from adverse environments like me, and they achieved this, and they are good things. And that's the other thing. You don't think you deserve good things.
Yeah.
You just think,
and then doing that is a lot of work.
Very, if you look at us as a country, bro, Kenyans don't really believe they deserve good things. We don't really believe. We say it, we talk about it, but it's not embodied.
There's no conviction in how we express it.
You see, and you just see it in the way we treat each other, in the kind of the quality of our relationships,
the way we treat people who dream.
The way we hear the dreamers, the way we think, if you think big, who do you think you are to think this big? At you're dreaming of what in Kenya? Forget about it. And it's in the education sector, it's in parenting, it's in relationships. Like, you're dating somebody and you want to further your education, and they start looking at you like it's either your school or this relationship. Something has to give, like we don't, and it's because our nervous systems really are just damaged, you see. So there are many forms in which this thing manifested in me, and I can say I am somewhere right now. Like it took incredible emotional labor and me having a hard look at myself and say, my friend, you're here. You're here. You've been invisible because you are made invisible, but you're here. It starts with just me seeing myself. One of my best ever writers, her name is Clarice Lispector. She's Brazilian. And she said something akin to, it is inside me that I must create someone who understands. That line healed so many things inside me. It is inside me that I must create someone who understands. So if you have to see yourself and understand your contexts, to say, okay, this is where I am. This is what's happening. This is what has happened. Now, this is what I want to see happening. Then you start working towards there. Because I remember after I went through the phase of that depression, the Rix that came out of that darkness was a totally different person. Because I asked myself, first of all, why am I a Christian?
Yeah, like the things that kind of
predetermined for you because of social cultural ideologies. Why do I want to marry? Must I be a father? Why am I rushing this marriage thing?
It's like redefining your value system. What are your values?
Exactly. And because in that darkness, I was sitting down and I was watching all these documentaries about activists also. And like, I think I just rewired my brain system, kabisa, and that does not mean that now all of a sudden the effects of adverse childhood traumas now just stopped immediately.
Yes.
It didn't mean that now all the relationships I'm getting into are now perfect, or now I'm so good with money or whatever. No, it didn't mean that. But the same way, like you see, like the way these phones, like they are always trying to do a better model and a better model every year and that kind of thing. So the human is also like that. If you're really doing your work, like you get better at
a system
things.
update.
It's a system update, like, so now you're Nibule Oblongata, you get in there, your operating system, clean up things, and as you go along, if you're lucky now, you will have a community or communities of people you can be weak with and vulnerable with and strong with and spaces you can go and not know anything and co-create solutions in, you see. And that's a huge way that I often advocate that we approach relationships, not with predetermined ideas of how things must go.
I don't, having learned of the little or the much that I've read about childhood trauma, it really affects how we move completely. Like it completely changes our views of the world, you know. Because like if, for example, you talked about walking with your head down, I think of the moments where sometimes like when I was still trying to figure out my diagnosis, I always felt an imposter. And this is like childhood home, amongst friends. Like there was no space. And I can't tell you how exhausting something like that feels. And, I think it kind of has to be an important conversation that we have on our day-to-day basis, like even away from mental health issues.
100%.
Let us address this. Let us people be cognizant of the fact that, it does not necessarily like mean that for everyone who's experienced trauma. We all experience trauma differently. I think that's the other thing. People might come from the same homes, experience the same things, but react differently. It's just that, I don't know. Like I have so much thoughts into that, and a lot of pain, a lot of grief.
Yeah.
Because, feeling unsafe in this world it affects everything. Because yes, we've spoken a lot about relationship itself, but everything that you do, how you interact with friends, how you view yourself in a workspace, in friendships. Yeah, all that.
Yeah. And in a world where, as a guy,
Yeah.
Hey, I run an anonymous Q&A thing, and there's often this person who keeps asking me, like, how do I navigate relationships as a man living with mental illness?
And outspoken about it, because that is
exactly.
Yeah,
man.
And how do you answer that?
I don't have an answer for it.
Yeah.
I really, because, the other thing is, Ngunu, the thing is, we are living in a very complex world. You could meet people who have grace for you, and you could meet people who don't have grace for you.
Yeah.
And what helped me is something I wrote about the other day, for example, that say, there was a time in my life I was a serial monogamist, moved from one relationship to another, relationship to another. I used to feel if I'm not dating somebody, I can't be happy, or my life won't be complete, or that kind of thing. And of course, that was stemming from codependency, stemming again from a lot of abandonment and neglect, and you're almost over-relying on this other person to help you feel like you're emotionally available or whatever. But then I got to a place and I realized I have to decenter these relationships.
Yeah.
And the almost dangerous word there is to decenter women, which created a lot of fire in my circles, because I was like, in my context, I'd rely a lot on women to do that emotional labor work for me.
Yeah.
For me to feel alive, for me to feel important. And I realized, actually, if I'm serious with myself, I need to start seeing who I am outside these romantic relationships. And what purpose I have as a human being, as a guy, as a whoever I want to identify, without necessarily over-relying on somebody else's presence in me. And how can I invest in male friendships that can help me still live a fulfilling life? You see what I mean? And so that has just made me learn, actually, you need to get to a point where you accept it's okay to stay without partnership, even though you might have that desire. You need to get to a place where you love yourself that much that, if they love me with my mental illness, cool. And if they don't, cool.
It's also cool.
Like you need to get to that point. And of course...
And like you actually need to get to that point within yourself.
Outside what, you're being told by your immediate family or friends. Yeah, why are you not getting married? Why are you not dating? Blah, blah, blah. For you, you see? Because I think there are many people who are really suffering because they feel very lonely. They feel, I need somebody so that I can do life with them. And these are good things. They're very natural human things to want, honestly. I don't
to desire.
I don't take them away from us. But then there's a lot of power waiting for you on the other side as well, where you realize, yes, you do need people, and you don't necessarily need one person to feel all those things.
That's
right?
also, it's all nigh on impossible.
Yeah, the over-pedestalization of romantic relationships in our culture today is actually more dehumanizing than we would like to admit. Yeah.
Okay. I could ask a lot from that, but to stay with the structure, like actually, I think I know the answer to this. But like, from that experience, how were you ever diagnosed with a specific condition, or not? Like, were you something like PTSD, or like was there a time that like you had diagnosis that maybe you were tackling, or it was just like trauma, PTSD then?
So from I've done cognitive behavioral therapy, which is not medical per se. So that's where, the suspicion was that you are exhibiting symptoms of post-traumatic stress and anxiety and depression. So, I've not been predisposed to having to take medicine of that regard. Perhaps we could call it emotional medicine, like where is, you're not taking pills, but then you're having these systems of therapies that engage your system differently than you having to take pills. Somebody told me, Rix, when I look at you, you are definitely neurodivergent, and perhaps you might need to do an ADHD test.
I knew that was coming.
And I've been sitting with that. I've been sitting with that because I do know I have many friends who are living with ADHD, and that is also a range. It's also a range. There are people who really can't function without medicine, and there are those of us who are really high-level procrastinators, and our brains are just all over the place. But then we can still somewhat function. So I'll be like, one of these days I'll pop into some psychiatrist's office and
take an assessment.
It's just good to know. It's just good to
know. We are going to welcome you.
Loudly
to this club.
I was like, hey, now I'm an ADHDer.
Yeah. Oh, so like, I think this maybe I'll do after. Sure. Because I wanted to do the Q&A, but I think ntanini. So like, let's just wrap it up.
Sure.
Because with the healing, the reason why I was asking about the diagnosis, and like you've kind of answered it a bit. But so like, apart from therapy, has, for example, like I know you are a poet, you write. Has art played a role, or what other mechanisms have you had to help?
So I started writing at 16 years old. And I felt like if I didn't get something out, I felt I was going to die, literally. At that time, that home was really difficult. So the thing that came to me when I was 16, I had been expelled from school, I'm home, I'm disoriented. And then the memory of my departed sister came back, because I watched her die. She actually coughed to death. She was being fed some food, and then she just choked.
I'm so sorry.
I was 7 years old. But then, what do you know about grief at 7 years? And I just had memories of kumwagilia mchanga kwa kaburi, and that was it. Nobody said a word about it after that. Not at home, not anywhere else. But then, of course, we had her pictures at home, and I just kept looking at her pictures. And this is somebody who was actually alive. She was here, but then she just got erased like that. She wasn't even in like our photos, like the portraits in the wall, on the walls, or anything. But my memory of her didn't disappear much.
It was still clear as day.
Right. So I thought, like, if Jael would have been here, I would have somebody to talk to. So I remember my first poem, A Letter to the Grave, and I was telling her all the crazy things that are happening to me, and like sometimes I wish I could join her, and that gave birth to another poem and another poem and another poem. So I found an outlet and realized that I'm actually quite an expressive person. Then I started experimenting with music, and that flew. So I went back to school. I started performing music. I'd write poems, and I was those guys who were being paid to write letters to their girlfriends in school, because I was just a good writer, and that grew. So so the art part has really been instrumental in helping me process grief and the trauma. But the other part is also just getting the science, the information in the science that, so this is what's happening in my brain. So if I do certain practices, I can actually, neuroplasticity, I can actually
change the wiring of my brain.
The way I see myself, everything. Like actually, I can do certain things and actually create another human being out of myself.
Yeah.
So those practices, like exercise, because I play football every week with my buddies. I have a community for that.
Yeah.
I love dancing. I like, just
as your social media followers would know.
Just wake up in the morning and like, they're seeing my boxers today.
Yes.
And that's also protesting in another way.
Yes.
It's like, this thing, because when I was young, actually, my dad. We were like a music family. So my mom would sing in the choir, and my dad, they loved this African rumba, Lingala music, which is what I really grew up listening to. So he'd put me on the living room table and tell me to dance for him. So we'd love music, and we'd sit down and watch all these music videos that were coming on TV and everything. So I grew up actually dancing on tables until when I was about 14, when we broke a table once with my brother. So I got back to that, like just dancing and just moving your body and everything. But the other big one is community, which I'm very loud about. The science has been helpful, and that's been nice, just getting information and the data and what's going on. But to be honest with you, bro, people have healed me. People, strangers, friends.
I keep insisting on here that healing only happens in community. You cannot heal in isolation. You kind of have to find your community to.
Yeah, and even when we break down that a little bit, like for sure, there are certain parts of me that have been more clear to me when I'm doing the emotional work, when I'm alone, okay? But then I practice it in community because you can't know if the thing is working.
You have to test it.
You have to test
Soft launch it.
That's actually
in good spaces.
Exactly. Like itakaje nikijaribu,
before you go to the external.
So it was kind of like, for example, like the way like the boys were over at my house at the weekend. I had to try, like, okay, what if I tell these guys wakujange kwangu like twice a month? How would that go? Because I really like the company of men is really nice. Like you feel,
and it is important for men
very,
to have those
like
spaces,
it's so different from when we're hanging out with chicks or even like our queer friends. Like men, like it's just different, But many men don't enjoy that. They don't experience that, where we're actually really talking about stuff that is affecting our lives and we are really struggling with, but also the happy things and teasing each other and all this stuff. Like, man, I would kill for that. So you test it, and when you think about it when you're alone, but then you go into community and you try it out.
And surprisingly, people are receptive to it.
So much.
And I think that's one of the takeaways I think people need to have. As like you as an example, because even referencing something like the videos, sometimes like I usually, every time, most of the time, like if Rix is trending, huyo ni Lingala aliekea watu asubuhi, he was dancing in his boxers. But and like, people, but you are generally like a happy person. Like I know like at that particular point I can call you, unaendelea na your life. Your life is good.
Ati uko mko Twitter sijui mnasema nini. Mimi naendelea na life bana.
And like you still like have these communities, men when you mnakanga chini ball every day, because like people want to reduce you to that. They think unakanga hapo una dance asubuhi, unashinda umeedit or you dance the previous night, then unakaa tu hapo waiting for validation.
From strangers.
I think a life. People like you should learn to find your happiness. Try speak your truth. Watu wakukupenda watakupenda. And like there are people who maybe sometimes will find something that you're doing uncomfortable. Like pros and cons, like the election napendea umse kwangu, because I mean all relationships are like that. Hakuna mtu anakupendanga 100%.
Ndio bana.
Ni ukweli. Man, I'm so grateful and for coming over and having this conversation. Like the work that you've done, like even right now, the number of people who I meet are going, hey, where do you know Rixpoet? There's this podcast, there's this event, nothing underneath. And like the work that you do is important. As I was telling you, like the fact that I keep coming across your work from, because like the first version I knew of you was Fatuma's voice. I'm sure right now there is a generation of whose voice?
Yeah,
who is Fatuma?
What is that?
Who's Fatuma?
Fatuma ni nani?
and like that also speaks to your ability to evolve. And like I think that kind of also plays, from the person that you are. Because I know people who hear these experiences, mtu alikuja aje kukua hivi. It is work, it is evolving, you kind of have to keep doing it. Always, system update, because like you covered it, the final bit was giving people practical tools. And so, finding community, because like sometimes people hear tools wanatingoja, no, it's exercising, finding your joy. Continue finding your joy, continue finding the things that excite you. The advocacy work, I'm sure it kind of helps with the work that you do. And because like, for example, me personally, like meeting you, Edgar, Aziz, it was important because there are things like there are boys na wananipenda and they're my people, but there are things only this person is going to understand 100%. How important it is, how to navigate it, giving me practical tips and examples of how to navigate it. And I'm grateful. So like, I think I speak on behalf of the viewers. Nakusema tunashukuru sana for not only for this, but for continue speaking up to your truth, continue living boldly. Please endelea, like, the way I think about it is that even with this, like, and how uncomfortable I am with this, speaking it up, I tend to think that the younger version of me will have appreciated having someone, talking about these things openly, unashamedly, with all their faults.
Yeah. And I'm really proud of you, because, I mean, going back 6-7 years ago, when we are getting to know each other and still trying to navigate the complexities of what's really happening inside me, and getting this courage to say, oh, this is where I'm at, and this is the reality of my place right now. And watching you still putting a step ahead of another and saying, actually, I'm really scared, but then I have to get this word out. That still, it's funny because, I mean, if you look at where we are from as a country in mental health conversations, we've definitely made a lot of strides,
Huge strides.
Like many, even in the context of Africa, even the world, because right now, ati tuko conversations that tunasema now we want to decriminalize suicide, Still, it's a huge thing.
And I think that wasn't celebrated enough.
Even though we are still behind, because what the heck? Like, why are we discussing?
If you and I could go back to that version, like around 2018 when we met, with the things that we've accomplished now, we couldn't imagine in our lifetimes.
Not ever.
And yet we still feel like, but 1,000 miles to go.
So thank you for doing this. Like, when I saw your call and you're telling me this, like, you don't even, like, I knew it's always a yes, and it's always gonna be a yes for you, because I don't think twice about you people. Edgar, Aziz, you, munipigie simu ati Rix, ni Nakuru, I will go. Because that's what the support and the love really looks like. We don't talk every day, and I mean, life is what life is, but then that shared brotherhood is forever, and I'm so grateful that you exist, because you also teach us a lot of things that, your experiences are way much more different sometimes. Even though some of the baselines could be similar, but then the manifestations are really different. And I'm like, oh, so this is what, oh, wow. Like, I would never not have imagined to go through this. I don't know what it's like. So thank you.
And anyway, like, we'll still have that conversation.
For sure.
about the work that you do with
Yeah,
nothing underneath. And I
sure.
think maybe you can't tell people like this. That podcast.
Yeah.
How can I best put it? It's the way. It's about how adults.
Pleasure. Yeah. Have fun
Yes,
with
and
their
the way the good Lord wanted us to people to get to know each other.
One of the things that I preach, okay, we have religious backgrounds where these are not conversations that were encouraged, but then in the natural world, which is the world we really live in, we can't run away from this. And the preaching is that our sensual lives are connected to every other thing that we are.
Yeah.
And even in the sensualities, we also exist in spectrums. So there are people who within their systems are like, it's not a big deal to me. And there are others who really thrive and they're actually active on these sides of life.
Yeah.
So let's continue spreading awareness and giving each other as much quality information as we can about the human experience in its all explosives, because it's a gift that we are given.
Yes.
It was like 1 in a million chance that you are the sperm that managed to get to the other side and even survived probable childhood diseases and all the crazy things that are happening for you to be an adult, man. So we shouldn't limit ourselves to just the small-minded ideas that other people who don't care about us crafted and even put into law as the forms in which we are supposed to be living our lives. See?
I'll give you that opportunity to preach. I see you are already set. Pulpit ndio nitakutafutia. Yeah, but definitely looking forward to it. So that has been Onyango Otieno, aka Rixpoet. You can find him on socials at Rixpoet. Check out his podcast on Nothing Underneath. I think by the time this comes out, your event will have happened. But check his social. He also usually holds live events. I am Ngunu, your host, and this has been the Liminal Minds.